you can see her.
All right, we're live. Hey, Brad, how's it going?
Hey, Patrick. All right.
And you got your cat. What's your cat's name?
Yeah, Steve. I got Steve behind
You
me.
got Steve back there. Yeah, we just adopted a little black cat. We have another one too, but it's a 3-legged cat. He had one leg amputated because he was
Wow.
born that way or something. But yeah, man, we call him Roo, like kangaroo, because he hops.
Yeah.
He has to hop around instead.
Gotcha.
So we'll see how long your cat hangs out, man. He's going to be the star, right? Any video that has a cat in it tends to do better, right? So
Well, I have 3. I have Steve,
yeah.
and he has a little brother, Jules, and then I have an older cat that I had. So.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we can bring the whole cat family in. Well, anyways, we have a lot of stuff we want to go over today, right? Because I've been saving stuff up for the week. But I guess first of all, what did you get this week? Let's see. Did you get any tennis? Did you get anything tennis this week?
I did. I got a reel of Wilson NXT. I got a mini reel of Head Hawk Touch. And let's see. I got some. I guess so. I drawing a blank on the name, but just to build up grips, the white and the black, full size, half size grip buildups. So I got about 4 of each of those. Occasionally, I'll have someone who wants their grip built up a little bit. So I ordered some of those. I got a couple cat vibra dampeners for my daughter. She loves cats. So they have vibra dampeners that look like cats. And gosh, I think that's all I got this week. How about you?
Well, did you hold on your stuff? Did you as far as the grip builds up, are you talking about the sleeves?
Yeah, the sleeves.
Okay. So do you actually have a heat gun or do you use something else?
I use a heat gun. It's simple and it's fast and effective.
Yeah. Was it a heat gun that you bought specifically for tennis, or is it a?
Yeah, specifically for the
which company did you buy it from? Do you remember?
I could probably look.
Because I actually would like. I'm looking to get probably a heat gun so I can show. Oh, okay, Wagner. So it's not a tennis related heat gun.
No,
but you can buy it. Yeah, I guess I'm not. I don't go I don't go to Home Depot enough to know that they sell those there.
Yeah, it works great. It's got 2 different settings and.
Yeah, because I know people say, yeah, you can use your hair dryer, but not really. You might be able to use it once and then you're going to blow it out. Yeah, I don't think you can get that heat quite high enough because you have to get it. Because once when you're building up the grip and you have it on there, you want to run that gun, consistently over, from top to bottom, and you can kind of see as it melts it on the grip, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And you got to have that. You got to have that intensity of heat. Otherwise, it's not going to set right, and it's going to be loose, or it's not. It's going to have little bubbles in it, or whatever. So don't even try it with your home hair dryer. Invest in one of those. They're not too expensive, but that's cool. So what did I buy this week? Well, I bought a stringing machine. It's going to take me a little while to get the videos out and the unboxing and all of that. It's a couple boxes. I don't really have a picture here I could show you, but it's 2 large boxes. Actually, I'll just move this so everybody can kind of see. The 2 boxes are sitting right there. You can kind of see, right? Yeah. 2 large boxes, and one of the boxes, this will probably give it away. One of the boxes is the base only, right? It's a pneumatic base, and then the stringing machine. It's a large box, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun to reveal that. It is a tournament grade stringing machine, so I'm looking forward to unboxing that, putting that together, and being able to have some fun with that. So that's all I got this week, but I need to get some string actually, and I'll probably get a reel of Sensation maybe.
Oh, I got a reel of Sensation also.
Yeah. So so that's kind of what I'm looking for. As far as this week, one of my subscribers connected with me, and he was talking about tool trays. He actually makes tool trays for stringing machines, and he uses a 3D printer, and he makes these tool trays. And what it is, you know, like a lot of times in your tool tray, you'll have a couple tools in there, and then you got to look for all your other stuff. And then you have some on the side pocket, or you have them laying around elsewhere. He'll make one to custom fit your stringing machine, and then you can stick all the tools in there and stuff. So it's kind of cool. He uses I think he strings on a Gamma 9000 or a Gamma, one of the Gamma machines and stuff. So yeah, here's my little three-legged.
Oh yeah, okay.
Three-legged little kitten.
It's like a youngster.
Oh yeah, he was a lot smaller. He was just barely he was like a couple weeks old when we got him and stuff. You know, it was we foster them through the Humane Society.
So which leg is his front leg he's missing?
Yeah, he's got a front leg. You can't see, he's all black, but he's got like you can't really see, but he's got you can't tell. Yeah. Sort of, because he's all black. You can't see where, but yeah, he's a cute little guy. But yeah, so yeah, he makes these tool trays and stuff, and it's kind of interesting. So I was going to try to have him on one time or something, or him talking about his machine too, because he's really found that it's a pretty good machine. But now the prices have gone up so much in these machines, because, you know, back 3-4 years ago, he said it was only like $3,500 or something like that, and now it's like $5,500 the Gamma, because they still sell it and make it. So it's like stringing machines for some of those have really gone up, or maybe they realized they underpriced it. Who knows? But
just the demand, I guess.
Yeah. And okay, so the next thing, resources. I got a few things I want to share. I always want to share a little bit about resources and so forth. Oh, looks like we got Herb on. Hey, Herb, he's on. Actually, I'm going to meet with him later, and we're going to do a little stream. We should just do a stream with the three of us maybe one time.
That'd be fun.
You know, we can do that. But yeah, one of my resources, you know, this is a book. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Technical Tennis. Yeah. And it is actually written by Rod Cross and Crawford Lindsay. And so it's more the technical parts, right? It's all about lab testing and kind of the difference between our perceptions of what we think is, of how things really work, as far as how we really generate spin, how we really generate power, you know, what characteristics of the racket are really the most important, and what is really marketing hype that we just have bought into over the years, you know, from manufacturers and stuff. And so they do research and lab research, and it's really technical. I mean, I read over it and over and over it, and it's a book that actually you get through the Racket Stringers Association, the USRSA.
I'll have to get it. I don't have it, but
they're actually the ones that publish it, because it's copyrighted by them, and Racket Tech Publishing by the USRSA. You can buy it on Amazon, I think, or through the USRSA. But I'll try to list a link below later on and stuff. And another thing, let's see, what did I do this week? I connected with Buy Me a Cup of Coffee, or what is it called? Coffee. Buy me a coffee.com or something like that. It's kind of like Patreon, but it's like, you know, if people want to donate, you know, with if they find the value, you know, if they find value out of these videos that I'm doing and we're doing and stuff, they can buy me a cup of coffee. It's basically just donating and stuff. So I have that in the videos and stuff. So I was kind of working on setting that up this week. I was reading an article on pro stringing. You know, there's always those articles that come out every once in about tournament stringing and what is, you know, what's new. I mean, not what's new, but, you know, what does it take to be a tournament stringer? You know, how do you get started in that? Apparently that's the USRSA gets a lot of questions about that, because, you know, they're the US trade organization for racket stringers. So a lot of people ask them questions like, you know, how do I become a tournament stringer, and what do I need to do? And so I found an article from May 2019, and it's titled Team Players. And I thought it was kind of interesting because, and maybe you can interject your thoughts on this too. It's kind of like, it's important to be super fast, just in general, right? That's just going to help you in the long run, being fast. But that's not really the critical thing. And I've talked about this a lot when I've done some videos on tournament stringing and so forth. But, you know, they hit it kind of, you know, in the main points, as far as you know, you need to have your skills need to be impeccable, right? And you need the biggest thing though is you need to be a team player because you're going to be working with stringers from all over the world when you're at a tournament. And you have to be able to get along with them. You have to work as a team. And what I mean as a team, not just getting along with them, but if somebody is needing help, you've got to be able to step in and, you know, carry the weight, right? Everybody has to carry, you know, if everybody carries the weight, the load is a lot lighter, right? But if somebody is lagging behind and not doing their part, it makes it hard for the whole team. Ultimately, everything has to get done, right? And so if everybody is, you know, if somebody's messing around and, you know, checking their phone all day, because that's hard when you're at a tournament, right? You're stringing all day and you're like, I just want to check my phone. But, you know, checking your phone a few times here and there takes you off that course of getting the what is it? Just not the
momentum.
Yeah, you get the momentum, right? And you lose that momentum every time you look at your phone or whatever it is. And we all do that, you know, but you just have to know, you know, what your workload is and you just have to get it all done. So it's really about teamwork and it's about being professional out there, you know, not gawking over the players and all that. You know, when a lot of times when you have new stringers on a team, you know, they need a little reminding sometimes, you know, it's like, you're there doing a professional job. You're not there to be a you know, autograph seeker, right? Because that's always hard, right? Because usually the people who are stringers, you know, are big fans of the pros and stuff. So yeah, I just thought that article was kind of interesting. I don't know what's your take on that?
Just on general about being a stringer for the pros.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, you have to be. You know, you can't be a typical fan, even though you really are a fan. I mean, you can't gawk over them. You can't. I mean, there is a video on YouTube of Federer getting his racket strong, and you know they hit him up with a lot of questions and autographs, and he's very great about doing it and stuff. But generally, that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I had the chance hitting and working with Venus and Serena for a few years, and you know, I wanted you know, mementos or, you know, memorabilia for family, for friends, for this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately I was able to get some things, but I also was very careful about, you know, when they're out of the arena and we're in the car driving back to the hotel or we're at the hotel or that's kind of their mental break time. That's kind of their time to, you know, regroup. And so certainly as a stringer, you've got to, you know, be very professional and stick to the script, really.
Yeah, that's a good point as far as
you know, it's just and depending on the size of the tournament too. I mean, like you mentioned before, the Grand Slam tournaments are chaotic in every aspect because they're in big cities. They're, you know, just the transportation, everything, getting a practice court, the stringing machines, the stringers are just getting inundated by the women, the men, the juniors, the seniors, the legends, whatever. And even the hitting partners, you know, they would need their rackets. I mean, there's not a lot of hitting partners because, you know, usually the best play, maybe you get one or two pros who can afford, you know, a paid hitting partner, or normally they'd have a coach that's also a good hitter, or they'll just hit with the other players in the tournament. But then some of the top players would have a coach and a hitting partner, you know, a few of them, like Monica Seles used to. Venus and Serena did. Lindsay Davenport would hit with her coach, Robert, who you know, right?
Yeah.
Lindsay would hit with Robert a lot, or they'd hit with other girls and stuff. So,
but yeah, that's true. So it's kind of one of those things. And you usually, you know, when you get to a tournament like that too, they will usually give you a time. They'll say, you know what, we'll make it a time. If you really want an autograph from somebody, you really want, you know, a picture or whatever, let's see, we can probably make it happen. And then the tour director will, you know, the stringing tour director will somehow set that up, possibly, if he can, you know, because everybody knows each other, everybody talks and stuff. So, you know, there's a way to do that, you know, somehow if there's somebody that you really want or whatever. But yeah, generally,
more than likely,
I stay away from it. But.
Yeah, and more than likely, it's whoever is in charge is going to make it very clear of the do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
And so you're going to know. You're going to know.
If you want to be invited back, you know, you're going to listen. So.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, The next thing is a little bit about proportional stringing. Okay, that's, I mean, I could probably talk about this for hours, but it's something that some of my subscribers have asked me about in the past, and I was going to do a full video because somebody had asked about the Sergey method and what do they think of that, and they have a full website, and they're promoting they're obviously trying to make a profit. It's a business, right? It's a proprietary system that they use, or software or whatever. But there are a lot of proportional stringing methods out there. And so I was trying to bring them all together and do a video on all of that so that you kind of see the different aspects of it. And when somebody contacted me about that, it reminded me, because it must be about 15 or more years ago, the guys that I was stringing with at a country club in Newport Beach, California, were creating a system of their own. And what it was they would use these little pads that were kind of made out of almost sandpaper-like material. And they would cut them in little squares, and they would use that along with the proportional stringing method, a proportional stringing method based on just doing math yourself and then figuring out, and then having it simplified. And then they were using these little, and then they had them made specifically for the tennis rackets, and they packaged them and sold them. Unfortunately, I don't have any of those anymore, and that they don't do that anymore. But it brought me back to that, because really, proportional stringing is basically adjusting the strings to the length, adjusting the tension of the strings based on the length of the strings to have a more uniform tension throughout the whole racket. Because rackets have a certain sweet spot, right? And it's not very big. Yonex, they have their highlighted larger sweet spot because they have that elongated, the isometric frames, right? Mm-hmm. And so they have a bigger sweet spot, just because if you think about it, they have more main strings that are the same length, just because of the way that they designed their racket, right? And that was kind of the idea of that, I think. And so to take it another step further, there's been systems created to figure out, like, when you string the outer strings that are shorter on a racket, the mains, at the same tension that you string the longer strings, they're going to sound different if you if you touch them, right, and get the musical sound of each one, right? They're going to sound different. Yeah. And so how does that equate to having your string bed really at 55 pounds if that's your reference tension? Your outer one is going to be tighter than 55 pounds, and your larger ones are going to be at 55. So your overall string bed is going to be it's not going to be what you want it to be, right? And so, that's I was going to put my headphones on, but or my and so really the idea is to measure the strings and figure out, proportionally wise, what you need to string each of the strings at, what tension, based on their length, to have a more proportional, uniform tension.
Yes.
And, for the most part, from my research, all the folks that really, have done it or have tried it or, have experimented with it, say it does make a difference, that it does really affect it if you can do it right. However, the offset of that is the time that it takes, the extra energy. You have to have certain stringing machines, because really, if you're going to be pulling at these exact tensions, you have to have a constant pull, 6-point mounting support system on your stringing machine, and it's going to take a lot longer. So you're going to probably charge more, right? Sure. And so this one system, the Sergey system, they will charge. You put all the specs in, send them all your specs for your racket, the one that you play with, and then they will adjust. They will adjust it for you and tell you what each string needs to be pulled at, what tension. Yes. and they will charge you like a certain amount for that. And then if you want to have another racket, then you have to pay again, right? So you're paying a lot of money for this. You know,
Right.
there's also other systems. You know, I've had some people use that system and they say that they like it. You know, the USRSA, you know, United States Racket Stringers Association. If you're a member, you go on their website. They actually also have a place on there. They have a tool, a calculator that's proportional stringing. So you can put in how many mains and how many crosses, and I think also the length, because that's important. And then it will tell you what you need to be pulling each of the strings at. There's the Jetway system. I think I wrote a few down here. I have it's called the Jet Method, and it's actually something that was designed around the L-Tech strings. Have you heard of L-Tech? The
No.
tennis strings, L-Tech. Yeah, they initially, I guess, created by John Elliott and John Youngblood, I guess. Their method is they were connecting it with specific strings, the brand L-Tech. And that's a proportional system. Then there's the JC system. I don't know that much about that one. I'm still researching that one. Then somebody else created a 4-knot progressive tension system. Then there's a live periphery stringing system. That was something that Weed rackets came out with. You know, they had those large. Weed was known for those really large rackets, the 135 square inch rackets or whatever it was. You know. Then there's Star Maker, and then the Sergey system. So there's a lot of these proportional systems. And actually, if you Google that, there's actually a free calculator that you can put in your numbers as well, just through a website. It's just a free calculator. If I find it again, I'll put it in the description after this video is over. And that you can just type in and they'll give you that information. So there's a lot of methods out there. For the most part, the idea is the same, but they're going to change the tensions a little bit. So I think I'm going to experiment a little bit with that and see what that ends up being. You know, string one at 55 on one racket, take the same racket, take another frame, same racket, try this method and kind of, you know, play around with that a little bit. And then I'll come back and, you know, report on that on the video and stuff. But have you ever heard of progressive? Have you ever heard of proportional stringing?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it. I did, out of curiosity, pay the $20 or $25 to Serengeti to get my proportional string tension for the racket I use, just as a curiosity, and I haven't tried it yet. But if I have, you know, if I have a client who wants it, then I at least want to have a little experience with it and using it. And I certainly will charge more. And I don't know if it would be $10 more per racket, because you're constantly, you know, you might be going from 53 pounds to 29.6 pounds to 38.4 pounds, back to 52 pounds, down to 19 pounds. I mean, it's all over the place. Now, I've talked to some people who think, you know, it's just a, you know, just a hoax. It's, you know, it's not worth it. Someone's making a fortune if they, you know, if they get people all over the world who are just paying them $25 like I did, and they email me this spec in about 2 seconds. You know, it's all in a computer program. It just shoots it back to you. I mean, it's a fortune to be made. Now, if you look at the testimonials, you know, a lot of people do give it a positive testimonial on their website. And I know a couple of the players who were decent, good players. I happen to know that gave testimonials. I'd like to really, you know, I kind of think it's a little bit like the red wine connoisseur. You know, you get someone who talks a big game and you give them a $2 bottle of wine and a $150 bottle. You know, they think it's the greatest wine they've ever had until you tell them that, hey, by the way, I flipped it and you're drinking a $2 wine, you know what I mean? So it's like one of those things. Is it really good? You know, if we could get all the top 10 players in the world, on the men and women, to play with their regular string and then try the Serengeti, and let's see what they feel, because those are the ones that really seem to be able to tell the difference between 1 or 2 pounds. But are they really? I mean, every time I string a racket now, I'll check the tension right after. And when I check it the next morning, it's lost anywhere from like 1 to 4 pounds just sitting overnight.
Right.
So the strings lose, but it's the consistency. So if they're always getting it strung at 62, then the next day it's always 59, or the next, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. And
it,
and
it
and and that's the thing is like I would think about actually if it was more the recreational player, they might benefit from it because I mean you're talking about more the tour players, but the recreational players because they need a bigger sweet spot. They need to
sure.
be able to not shank the ball off of the frame more. You know, they need to be able to have the more of a consistent trajectory when the ball leaves their racket. So because they're
How
not
did
going
they
to be able to control the frame
scientifically
as much.
prove?
So they're really going to be that market, I think. It's, you know, and so what if it works? But what about all the creep that each string has, you know, because if you're stringing one, that's why I was talking about that sandpaper, that those little pads that they were putting in each of the strings in between, because it
Sure.
was the idea was that it was going to keep the string from moving more because, you know, the
Yes.
strings are going to move because if you string one string at 55 uh, pounds and then and you tighten it and then the next string you string at 42 pounds, well, what's going to happen? They're going to kind of start to creep into each other, right? To some
Hmm.
degree. I mean, it's not going to hold exactly as is. So that's
Yeah.
kind of my, you know, that's my concern. Like, you know, what's it going to do to the overall bed of some people say that it actually increases the tension a few. So it should be less tension loss. So there's an idea. I don't know.
Yeah. It's
I'm
interesting.
willing to try it for some of my free methods and some of the methods that I've discovered before I go spend a little bit on it. But you know, it's always fun to experiment, and you got to
Yeah.
like try different things because I I did get somebody who uses that method, the Sergey Method, gave me their they didn't they're you know they don't want to tell me their specs, which is understandable, but they gave me the length of their racket strings and what racket they're using, and then I will and the reference tension, and so then I will use one of my methods and give them the numbers that they need, and then they can
Okay.
try it and compare the two and see
Yeah.
how close they are, or you know how they're you know how they relate and so forth. It'd be kind of fun to have somebody like that on our show, you know, get
Yeah.
them to
Sure
talk
would.
about the method and how you know theirs is what it is. I mean, because I they have a pretty good website, you know. I mean, they've really
Yeah. Very.
you know, Sergey and stuff. That's really the only one that I know that has a full on website to promote that.
Yeah, and I
But
don't know. I don't understand. I don't know the science behind, and I haven't really tried to figure it out or look for it. But the science behind, how can they tell that now it's 10% more of a sweet spot or 20%? Like, what measurement are they using that they can now gauge that the sweet
well,
spot has grown?
actually, I think that's when your you know tension meter like this comes in handy
Yeah.
because I think instead of you know how when we do the tension we do it in the middle of the racket, right,
Yeah.
at a certain string. Well, in this case you should be able to use this throughout the racket, I think, and it
Hmm.
should come out with the same tension number.
Now, doesn't the US RSA tell you that as you get around the edges of the frames and those mishits, it's sometimes more forgiving to have it a little bit looser and not be the same tightness on the edges that it is in the center for the mishits. I kind of remember that, I
Mhm.
believe, around my test time, but who
Yeah.
knows?
So
I mean, I know
yeah, I
when I
think, you
break
know,
a string, it's usually always in the same spot, and probably you
yeah,
too. I mean, you
yeah,
always break it. It's a very similar, very close spot every time.
yeah. But yeah, so we'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how that you know equates. But you know,
It's been
something to play
around for
around with.
3 or 4 years now, so maybe it won't take off, or maybe
Mhm.
maybe it will. Maybe just people didn't know. So as people watch your videos or other videos, it's possible that these could become more
Yeah.
popular.
And I think the stringers just need to be up to speed on it, and they just need to realize that they have to charge extra for it because you're now going to be really spending 45 minutes on a racket most likely.
And
And
it's a lot
so,
more wear and tear on the machine to constantly be pressing those buttons. It's like rolling the window up every 10 seconds in the
yeah,
car.
that's
Up,
true.
down,
Yeah,
up, down, up, down,
yeah,
up, down, up, down, up, down.
yeah. So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of those things, right? Give and take on that and stuff. So, um, and let's see, stringing tips. Let's just get a couple stringing tips out there for everybody today. One stringing tip that I saw, I was actually reading the European Racket Stringers Association magazine, and there was one tip that somebody put together that they were stating that, you know, how tight should you this is for 6-point mounting on computerized machines. How tight should you secure the frame to the machine? Some folks feel that, some stringers are saying that, tighten the knobs until it's secure and then go a little bit. Some people say you want it so that the frame can just barely move, that it just has a little bit of playability. You don't want to be putting pressure on the frame and on your 6 points, right?
Right.
And generally this is when the racket is not there. I think there's some machines where the racket will actually be touching the machine. It shouldn't really, but on some I think it touches where the throat is on the turntable, and that's different. But if it's only held by the 6 mounting points, meaning the 4 outer ones,
Yeah.
and then the 2 that you secure the frame at 12 and 6 o'clock, that's what we're really talking about. So securing that, how tight do you like to go?
I don't, kind of like a screw that you turn in that you don't want to over thread.
Yeah.
I kind of like to just put it in snug, and then I want hardly any movement, but I don't want it locked in there, right? The frame can handle a tiny bit. You certainly don't want it loose at all. You want it secure, but I don't ever crank any of them to make it too tight. I just basically kind of, that's the way I was always taught. That's what I believe they teach is you don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to put any
there's been times when that I've seen, like when you see used machines sometimes for sale, you will see because if you're familiar at all with the Babolat Star 3 and the Star 4, probably the Star 5 is a little bit different, but the older machines, those knobs, those yellow knobs on the outside, that secure it. What people would do is they would get them on so tight, and after they string the racket, they didn't know the proper way of loosening it when it's tightened. So they would actually use like a vice grip, a large vice grip on it or whatever, and reef on it, and then damage the.
Wow.
They would it would just damage them, and then they'd be, so. There are people that over tighten, right? And sometimes the frame itself, if you don't string it the right way, or you maybe string from the bottom up on the crosses, can create different stresses on the frame, and then the frame kind of expands, and then when you're getting it off, it's kind of hard to get off.
Yeah.
So you got to just be aware of that.
Yeah.
Hey, we got somebody from France here, and he's like, he loves our thoughts, so that's cool. All right, so we got, I've noticed that a lot of the stringers and the people that watch some of the videos are actually from other countries. I get a pretty good, and that's why the European Racket Stringers Association has kind of been more in my thoughts a little bit lately, because I'm like, I want to find out what's going on in Europe. I want to find out, in the US, we're using certain strings and we're using certain technologies and we're using certain methods. But in Europe, what's going on? I mean, I know they use the Biardo machine at a lot of tournaments. I was just reading, I think this one tournament, I think it was in Amsterdam, not Amsterdam, but it was in the latest, ERSA Pro Stringers
publication
issue and publication. And they were talking about a tournament. They had 3 Biardos at the tournament and stuff. So, they are used, that is a machine that is pretty widely used. So. Oh, the guy that came on from France, he's a beginning stringer. So we always try to put in some beginning tips and things. So we'll have to make sure we definitely put in that in our videos here. But just real quick on that tightening, that securing the frame. I think what I'm going to do on a few tries is I'm going to measure the racket. I'm going to, the racket unstrung when it's in the machine. I'm going to try to measure, from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and from 12 to 6 to 12, and then 9 to 3, and measure with a ruler and write those numbers down, try to get as exact as I can. And then later, after I string it, measure the frame. And I want to see how much, distortion or how much it's changed as far as, I mean, for the most part, that's the whole purpose of the 6-point mounting, right? Is to keep the frame from distorting. Because if you have a 2-point mounting, a lot can happen when you're pulling those crosses.
Sure.
So, you know, you really got to be more careful. Yonex rackets were always the ones that had a little bit more difficulty and stuff. Oh yeah, Herb says that he has a lot of folks that reach out to him from Europe. So that's cool. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of stringers worldwide that just, you know, want to get more information, want to, you know, up their game a little bit and stuff. And that's kind of what we're about. And so I guess that's it on that. That was one tip. I don't know. Do you have a good beginner tip for this week? We should probably do that.
Measure twice. Measure twice. Always measure
So what do you
twice.
mean? What do you mean? What do you mean measure twice?
Well, when you're getting the string ready, let's say it's a one piece. Say it's a one-piece string job. You know, your short side might be what, 9 or was it 8, 9 feet on the short side? So
Yeah.
just make sure you measure that. Measure that. Now, where I have my stringing machine set up, I have a wall and I have a black Sharpie, and I measured out 4 feet and 2 feet and even a 1 foot. So when I need my string, I go from dot to dot to get my 4 feet. So I do, you know, if I do 5 times, generally I can do, you know, if it's a string out of a package, usually if I split it down the middle, it's fine. So if I do 20 for the mains, 20 crosses, I've got excess on both ends. Now, if it's a larger racket and you have a tighter string pattern, so then you have to be a little bit more careful. So if it says 19 feet for the mains and 21, you've got to be a little bit more careful on that measurement.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I mean, but with sets, I always just cut them right in half. I don't mess around because
Right.
you should be able to string. You should be able to string pretty much 99% of the rackets with, you know, the mains with a half set.
Yeah, and if you've got one of those 120 oversized rackets, then you'd be a little bit more careful. You know,
Right,
you
but
gotta
you
really
should
look.
have a starting clamp just in case, because that's what we use, right, to bridge that gap between the end of the string and securing the last string.
And I have to do that a lot. I don't have to do it a lot, but it happens enough where I'm just a little short and I need to bridge that string. And so you definitely need an extra starting clamp.
Right, and that's really the only way to do it. I mean, I guess you could use vice grips or other methods if you had to, but a starting clamp is the way to go. That's why you really need to have that starting clamp and doing that right. So yeah, that would be a good video sometime, just to, you know, show how to do that for people.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
because it's natural to come a little bit short. But you know what? If you measure and you start out the right way, you shouldn't have, you know, you shouldn't get yourself into that position too many times. Sometimes with those 18 by 20 patterns on mid-size rackets, you get kind of close or whatever. But yeah, I always measure down the middle because I don't like to by accident use the wrong half a set that I measured half a feet longer or whatever. I just measure down the middle and that's it. But when I try to measure for a racket, I use my arm wingspan kind of, you know, you get used to how much, you know, how many you have to pull and it's just a feeling after a while. But yeah, if you're starting out, the best thing to do is find something, a table or something, and have maybe a measure by either 3 or 5 feet, because that's the easiest way to do it, right? If you do 3, then you know you just do it a certain amount of time, or 5, you know, 5 is a good one, because then you could just go 5, 10, 15, 20, and then, you know, go to 40. 5 is probably the best, you know, and then you can just do it that way. And that way you never come up short, or you don't waste string if you're using a reel and stuff. So that's definitely
with Wilson NXT, it stretches so much that you can easily get more than 16 and a half sets out of a reel of Wilson NXT. You can almost get 18 if you measure it correct. If you measure 38 feet instead of 40 or 37 feet, depending on the racket. Not only that, you get so much stretch that you get more than. So if you let's say you cut 37 feet for Wilson NXT, by the time you stretch it all, it's going to be probably over 40 by the time it stretches out. So you're getting like a lot of extra stretch on those soft multi-filament strings. You know, you won't get that on the poly, but so you can really,
I mean that's true. But if you're stringing a high volume of rackets, and every time, and you're like, okay, now I've got to, you know, it's just sometimes so much easier just to throw out a set, open up a package and
For sure.
string it right, because
I
having
got
to
a lot behind me.
measure individual for each one. But yeah, you definitely can save, and it's worth doing right. And that's one area for some people maybe that they want to improve on, is as far as their measurement or whatever. And that's kind of what I think is important when you are trying to improve your stringing, right? You look at all the different aspects of stringing and figure out the one thing that's maybe your weakest, or one area to improve on. And for some people that might be, I'm going to spend more time measuring correctly. I'm going to figure out a better measurement system. And then once you've done it a few times, it becomes natural, right? I mean, you just figure.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
Did you ever come across any pros who you would use the around the world method on, or not generally? Do you have much experience with around the world stringing? You know, the one piece that ends up at the throat that you wrap.
Yeah, I mean, we used to, a lot of times when we strung gut or even poly, a good portion of rackets that you string, no matter if it's recreational or professionally, we would do around the world. Not everybody does two piece. I mean, if you're doing a hybrid, that's obvious. That's obvious, right? You do a two piece. Or if you are adjusting tension by a couple pounds and you wanted something different, you're going to do a two piece. Some people
would do that.
What's that?
Would you do instead of using a two piece? Would you go for automatically an around the world if it ended up at the throat, or would you do just a two? I mean, a two piece is easier, I think.
No. We would. Since the beginning, I guess, let me go back. So when I learned to string rackets, I learned from a person who always felt that you need to go from top down, right, on the crosses. So you never go from the bottom up on any string job.
Right.
And so around the world was just a natural way to do that, because all you would need to do is just, that last, on the short side, you just go up and then you go down, right? So it was just a natural way of doing it. So I don't, if somebody comes and they bring their racket, I will always do around the world unless they specifically wanted a two piece.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it looks nice there aesthetically.
Yeah, so if for whatever reason, if it happened to be that the mains end up on the bottom, then I would do around the world. If they ended up on the top, then I would just do a standard pattern. But I would never make an issue of it. I would be just like, okay, you want your racket strung one piece, and I would just take care of it based on what I'd have to do behind the scenes.
Did you ever run into a racket where the grommets were so close that there was concern about too much pressure from the one piece? Like, I was recently watching a video, and I'll try to remember it. I never have. I haven't done a ton of around the worlds, maybe 3 or 4.
Yeah, I've adjusted my pattern. I've adjusted my pattern. Sometimes instead of the outer ones, I do some different box patterns and stuff.
Gotcha.
And so there are ways to do it. So yeah, sometimes if you get like a racket and you're going, this is not going to work out quite right. You know what? You can always go to a two. You could start a string job thinking that you're going to do around the world. And if you realize it's not going to work, you could you could adjust and go to a two piece, because you just cut the string where you're at. It's kind of a waste of time, but doing it that way. But I've had to adjust my thinking before. I've even, I will even move the tie off holes as needed on rackets based on making it work. Because sometimes around the world might not be the best way because of where the tie off holes are and so forth. And so I will adjust my tie off holes or adjust my stringing just to make it work, because I don't like to have large pieces of string on the outside of the racket.
Me too.
Tie off, because that's tension loss right there. So, but yeah, I don't string bottom up. So, yeah, that's a good question. I think the question that he said is, I experience a thing. I think around the world patterns have better sound at impact. Well, around the world, I think the strings probably at the bottom are going to be a little bit looser than the strings in your sweet spot, right? Because your sweet spot, you're going to be stringing before you get to the bottom and tying off. So, I mean, you really shouldn't lose any tension either way, but yeah, maybe that also impacts that and stuff. But yeah, stick with around the world. It's better for the frame.
Yeah.
And most people think that, as far as for stringing as well and stuff. So, but yeah, that's a good point. Let's see. I think there's just a couple things we wanted to get into. You know what I thought was fun? I was just thinking about this the other day. What we should do sometime when I have a lot more subscribers, of course, is a stringing competition. We could do a live stream. Everybody could be on, a bunch of people, and we could see, just for fun, everybody on their own machines stringing to see who can string the fastest. Just as a, kind of a string competition. I thought that'd be kind of fun. Just something a little different. I don't know if we'll have to talk about that, but it'd be kind of fun. Maybe get
16 by 19.
What's that?
Is that the most common 16 by 19 pattern?
Yeah, probably. Or yeah, I think 16 by 19, because there's not too many that are, 14 by 16 or 17, or yeah, that's a little bit less common, right?
Right. And that's the 18s, of course, mains. But
yeah, of course, everybody's going to have to string the same. The rackets are going to have to be the same pattern, because I can't, I don't even have any 14. Like if I still had an old, Prince Graphite 2 or something that he used many years ago, right, 20 years ago, it was 14 mains that I could string that racket like probably in 7 minutes or something. I've done it so many times, but so yeah, I thought that might be kind of fun. And another resource for people that I've recently found stringing groups on Facebook.
Yeah,
those can be really helpful. Like I just signed up for a few. You had to be a stringer in the ones that I signed up for, but I think that's really valuable, because then you can learn from other people.
Yeah, I've done that. I've signed up for one. You'll have to message me which ones you joined. I'll join them also. You see what people are talking about, what questions they ask.
And so because I think it's really helpful to kind of get feedback from other people, and if you have questions, and I think that can just support going forward, helping you string. So I guess the biggest thing we want to talk about today, right? We kind of waited a little bit, but we really wanted to talk about King Richard, right?
Yeah, came out.
So,
I think it opened on Friday.
Yeah, it just opened yesterday, or a couple days ago, and I wanted to make sure that I watched it so that we could talk about it. And you said you were going to watch it, and I took my wife, and it was So I don't know. Let's start talking about it. What's your first impressions?
Well, my first impression was that that it was good. It was a good movie. I thought that Will Smith was awesome. He's just incredible. He always is. I felt like all the characters, they did a really good job at portraying who they were trying to portray. I don't know Rick Macy personally. I've never met him. I don't think I've ever met him. But I certainly know, Richard, and I know his wife Orsine, and I thought they did a great job with both of them. I thought, and certainly having input from Venus and Serena and Isha and Lindrea, all the sisters, helped. They were part of this movie. The Williams family endorsed this movie and supported it, and so they really got to probably spend a lot of time with them. But I thought that they nailed Orsine the way I knew her, just quiet confidence, and just her mannerisms, and certainly Venus and Serena. I was just blown away at how even the strokes of the girls, they got down to hit the way Venus and Serena hit.
And some of them don't even play tennis. They don't even play tennis. They learned how to hit those strokes just from from their acting list. I mean, from their hit obviously intense training by people that can teach them how to emulate that.
Yeah.
But that's just crazy that one of the guys on our stream says the movie's not out yet in Europe. Hopefully that won't we won't have any major spoiler alerts, but yeah,
and everyone knows the story for the most part.
When I saw those players hitting that were the actors playing Serena and Venus, I thought that when they cast them, I thought that they found players that could actually play. Because when I was watching, because you know how you can tell if somebody plays tennis, right? You can watch them for about 2 minutes, and you could tell if this person can play tennis or if they can't play tennis, right? I mean, if they learn the right way.
Sure.
And they look like they could play tennis.
Yeah, I
You know,
agree.
so obviously movie magic or something. But that I just thought that was kind of like, it was fun just to watch that, those cuts into the court and getting to watch them kind of hitting the ball, and obviously that wasn't the purpose of the movie, wasn't for us to watch them play a match. Obviously, it was more
Yeah,
about Richard. I mean, it was about Richard, and I read an article from the New York Times that came out a couple days before the movie came out. And so I was reading that, and they were just kind of giving their opinions on it. And for the most part, they gave, thumbs up on it. But, they were talking about stuff in there is, it being a superhero kind of story, talking about, because it always seemed like it goes between like Richard Williams and his philosophy and his temperament, and how that impacted all of the decisions that they made, right? It's like
yeah,
you see one hand, he's like reaching out for help from, he understands he needs to get these kids higher level coaching. So he goes to these country clubs, and he's like, uses his wit, and kind of like, uses his language, and just kind of like, hey, I'm just a poor guy over here. These girls are really good. I think you should look at them, kind of thing, kind of like humbling.
yeah,
But yet in the background, he really knows what he wants. And when it comes time to these guys either saying yes or no to him, he has a rebuttal, or he has like, well, actually, this is how it's going to play out.
yeah,
So he knows how to find what he needs, and yet he can up it one and get, because it, like, as an example, later on in the movie, right, when they were actually going to sign the contract, I think that was the one where they're going to sign the contract with Rick Macy. And, he basically said, well, this is what I can offer you. And, you're thinking like, oh, is he going to just take that? No, he has his own contract,
yeah,
and this is what I need. I need transportation. I need a house. I need it, so he really understood the whole game,
yeah,
like, and he worked it in his favor. I mean, I think it was, even at times it seemed like he was unreasonable or whatever, right? Or stubborn, or whatever you want to say. But one thing that the person that wrote the article in the New York Times said, that the way that Richard looked at the coaches and all of the support for the girls, they basically said, they are neither the saviors or the villains, meaning the coaches, but rather men whose stake in the tennis system limits their perspectives. So I thought that was really interesting, because many times all the coaches have their own systems and they have their own way. You have to do this in order to get here, right? That's just because they're part of the system, right? The US, whether you call it the USTA system, whatever, the US, junior or professional hierarchy of, getting from point A to being a tour. They have a formula to get players where they need to go.
tennis.
It was just kind of interesting because, in the movie, he didn't really portray them as good guys or bad guys. He knew that he was fighting a system, and he wanted his system to play out. And he just figured out how to use the other system and yet make it work for him, right? Because he said, no, they're not playing juniors, but he didn't reveal that until after he signed the contract.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's just natural. Why would you even question that? But, he was able to work it. I kind of felt a little bit sorry. I mean, like the first coach that he used in LA.
Paul Cohn.
And yeah, because this guy saw some talent and he was going to help him out. But then at the end, it was just kind of like, okay, thanks, see ya. So I'm wondering what he got out of it, Paul.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't know much about that. I do remember when I first started hitting with Venus and Serena. Well, I hit with Serena for the first time in Chicago in 1997, and she was like 305 in the world. And they gave her a wild card in the singles because Venus, who was quite popular at the time, who was not in the singles, said, I'll play in the doubles with my sister Serena if you give her a wild card into the singles.
Oh, okay.
So they gave Serena a wild card into the singles, and that's where I met her in Chicago. in 1997, and she ended up beating two top 10 players at that tournament, ranked 305 in the world. She beat Mary Pierce and Monica Seles, and I think she beat Elena Lakoktseva first round. If I but anyway. But I remember Richard, one of the first times I really formally started working for them in 1999, or 98. It was 1998. He was asking me about Paul Cohn. Do you know Paul Cohn? He's Coach Sampras and this and that. And we spent some time with him in California, and I had never heard of him. And nor did I don't think I ever really looked him up. I'd never heard of him from anyone, you know. So it was interesting to see him portrayed in the movie. The only thing I had heard is Paul Cohn, Pete Sampras, is what Richard Williams had mentioned, you know, back when I first in 1998 or whatever. So it was kind of neat to see this guy Paul Cohn, and you know, on court with Sampras and I guess McEnroe. If that's, I assume he did work with both probably, or if they put McEnroe in the movie, you know, on court with him. But so it was interesting to see that. And I guess Paul Cohn basically said, you know, I can work with Venus. I don't have time for both or whatever. And that was an interesting kind of part.
Because right then you're starting to think like, how is that going to affect the two of them, right? It seemed like, you know, they obviously worked it out, but you know, you're wondering in the back of your mind, like, you know, how does that really affect them? But obviously he had a plan for both of them, because if you look at the plan that he wrote, you know, before they were even born, right, talks about, you know, how he outlined what they were going to do. And, you know, it's interesting how he took Serena on the side and said, hey, you know, you're going to actually be the greatest.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of, you know, I mean, you know, these are fictionalized characters, right? You got to remember they're fictionalized characters in these movies, but yet, you know, it's based on their real life. So you wonder, you know, how much of that is, you know, because I mean, some of that stuff I didn't know in the movie, you know, like as far as all the, I mean, you know, them growing up in Compton, yes, you know that, but like, you know, how close was he to screwing it all up when he, you know, took that gun with him too,
right?
You know, and that it's like, oh my gosh, you know, that it's just like you look at all those decisions and you go, he probably was like, oh, that was a really bad decision, but oh, you know, I better just, you know, walk away, right? And it's just like that scary times, right? I mean, I'm sure everybody, you know, when you think about just general, right, the decisions that you make every day and the impact of those, and and wow, you know, I just never thought that was part of, you know, this whole scene, but for their success or whatever. But you could see, obviously, you know, you look at them at the end of their, or you look at them at their highlight of their career when you were working with them, probably as they were just kind of rising to their fame or whatever. You look at, oh man, look how easy this is for him. But look at the road that he had to go through to get there. I mean, just playing, it was dangerous just playing on those courts in his neighborhood. I mean, every time you go out there, you never know who's going to be driving by, right? And so the obstacles and the things that you had to overcome, especially coming from where he's coming from, is just incredible. And then look at what it's done now, right? I mean, how many programs are around, youth programs, just because of those two?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that movie, it kind of ended 2 years before I even met them, right? Because I think the movie kind of took us to 1994. When she played Arantxa Sanchez in the second round. So I had yet to even, you know, be in their world yet. I met them in 97, and like I said, Venus was pretty well known. I don't know what her ranking was at the time, but Serena was 305 in the world. And then I started working for them officially about a year later. And I guess, when did I go down there? Probably in December of 1998. So at that point, neither one of them had won a Grand Slam. You know, I don't think Venus had won a double slam yet. But anyway, so it was a year later, 1999, at the U.S. Open, when Serena won the first Grand Slam, and I was the hitting partner, which was awesome and unbelievable for me, right? Because I was used to satellites playing, you know, sleeping in a Motel 6 with 6 other guys and splitting $35, right?
Oh man.
And yeah, so I mean, to go from that to all of a sudden we're staying in great hotels, we're, you know, I've got transportation whenever I need it to and fro. I've got
Mhm.
good food stipends. I've got, I'm making money as a hitting partner. And so when Serena won the US Open that year in 99, we celebrated and they had to play the doubles final the next day. So we had Serena won the singles final over Hingis, and we were staying at the Essex House on Central Park South in New York City that year. And I picked up a large pizza behind the hotel, and it was me, Serena, Venus, and Oracene in a hotel room eating a pizza the night Serena beat Hingis. I mean, that was the celebration that
Oh,
night.
cool.
Now, yeah, the next year I worked for them also. Venus won. So this is 12 months later. Now you've got agents,
Mhm.
you've got your publicist, you got your accountants, you got, all these people, just everyone is showing up now. So the next year when Venus won, we're at a restaurant where there's like 15 or 16 people sitting around the table.
It
And
gets more expensive, man. The higher up you go, I mean,
yeah,
it makes sense, right? I mean, you
but
can't do
that
everything
first
yourself.
year was so special and so unique that no
Mhm.
one was around. And it was awesome. And I don't even know, where Richard was that night. By the third year when Venus won and I was still working for them, they went to another restaurant, but the craziness of the slams, I stayed in the hotel room with Richard that night and we watched like the Animal Planet. It was just the two of us just relaxing in the hotel room. So it got busier and busier. So I got into the Williams family kind of when they were big, but
Mhm.
just before they became sensational around
Yeah.
the world, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of joined them after the whole Rick Macy, after that Venus debut in Oakland, but I started with them before the Grand Slams. They started winning those, so I was there during a unique time. And I before that I had worked for Yana Novotná, so I had already had experience as a hitting partner with Yana Novotná, who was number 2 or 3 in the world at the time. And so when I started with Venus and Serena, it was like I wanted to not be in their face and not be like, I just wanted to show up, be professional, work hard, be
Yeah.
polite, be courteous. But I remember when I first broke my strings and needed to string, Richard said, you can string your rackets at our house here because we were practicing. They had 3 courts at their house in
Mhm.
Palm Beach Gardens, and they had a stringing
They
machine.
had
And
3 they had 3 chords?
yeah, they had 2 clay courts and 1 hard court, or 2 hard courts and 1 clay. I think it was 2
Okay.
clay and 1 hard.
Well, I wonder if the hard chords are different surfaces, like, for different speeds and stuff.
No, I think they were just the same and stuff.
Okay.
But it was interesting. So I'm stringing rackets at their house on the screened-in porch, and then 5-10 minutes into me stringing, Venus and Serena come on the porch with a broom and a duster, and they're starting to clean up and dust around the porch, the screened-in porch. And Richard comes out and he says, "Brad, how do you like this? 2 top 20 players in the world out here dusting and vacuuming." I said, "I like it, Richard." I said, "You're teaching them well." And so
Mhm.
I just thought it was a funny little story and stuff. But so they were out there stringing, or out there, working while I'm stringing, and it's kind of quiet. And I didn't want to be the first one because I had only been there a week or two, and I didn't really want to. I wanted them to want to know me,
Yeah.
right? I didn't want to just start like asking them a bazillion questions, so I didn't. So it's just kind of quiet for a while, and then out of the blue, I don't remember if it was Venus or Serena. "So you worked for Novotná, Brad. What was she like?" So I just, as soon as they asked me a question and were curious about me and who I was, "Where are you from? What's Rochester like?" So I felt like now I've become kind of friendly with them. Now
Yeah.
they want to get to know me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
to me, that was like a really important moment in my relationship with them. Just like with Brandy, with Oracene. Sometimes they call her Brandy, sometimes Oracene.
Mhm.
She would come out to the court almost every day, and she would just give me a very subtle smile and nod. She wouldn't say anything, and it was like that for about a week. And one day I got my hair cut, and when my hair grows, I got curls and stuff. So I
Mhm.
cut my hair real short. My curls were gone, and I walk out, and she comes out. She said, "Brad, you cut your curls." She gave me a big smile and stuff. So I felt like that was like a moment where we kind of like bonded. She finally
Yeah.
spoke to me, and then I became very close with her when she would come to the tournaments. We were in Montreal. We went hiking together up through some trails and stuff. So, but it took a little bit to kind of get into that family, as you maybe could see from the movie. They were very
Yeah.
close, and they were
Yeah.
very kind of like
Guarded.
their universe and stuff. And they were very careful about who they let in and who they trusted. So
Yeah, well, that makes sense because everybody's out too. Because you could look at those agents. They can kind of sniff them out pretty easily.
sure, yeah,
And it's kind of funny how they portrayed that in the movie, right? Because every um, interaction that Richard had, it seemed like with somebody who was trying to get something from them, or
right,
more like giving something to them, was really actually getting. I mean, that's how that works, right? I mean,
yeah,
like when they come up with the contract for $3 million, and it's like, it's only good tonight. You play a match tomorrow, that's
yeah,
it, right? And which
yeah,
makes sense for them because they were trying to get a low ball, because they knew the potential, and they were hoping to, it's like buying stocks, below, before something happens, the
but
catalyst.
they made it a good point. Like when Richard, declined the offer, and Rick Macy here is going nuts. Like, what are
I
you
know.
doing?
Yeah.
And I don't remember what he said, but ultimately he says, "We're going to dinner. We're going to put it on your charge."
Yeah.
Because I mean, had they not been so kind of taken care of, with the living accommodations, the salary,
Mhm.
whatever, and they were, if they were living like I was at the Satellites, maybe they would have taken that 3 million. But they were being taken care of, and they had kind of everything they needed for the training. And Richard, I think everyone believed it, and Richard believed it, although no one knows. There's no guarantee for tomorrow, right?
Right.
To walk away from 3 million
Yeah.
is
You could
pretty
break your wrist, the next day, walking outside. And
right.
so
She's
what?
14 years old, three
Yeah.
million. They grew up in Compton. I mean,
Right.
so it was I mean, there's no story like, well, let's just put it this way. It's a hell of a unique story.
Yeah.
There's probably no story ever like it again in the world of tennis. I've met tons of tennis families who are, you think are a bit crazy with,
The way, yeah.
the way they handle things with their kids. Now, Richard, if the girls didn't make it, would just be another, nut. Everyone would think he's a nut, but
Mhm.
now they think he's a genius, and Oracene too. I mean, I think she doesn't get all the credit that she probably deserves. But
And
it's
sometimes, I wonder how many how many other coaches have kind of looked at his system and looked at, just kind of really picked at, how did he make this work? Because obviously he had to learn how to play tennis. He watched videos or whatever it was to learn how to play, because he wasn't a natural tennis player. And then he taught his wife so that they could teach the kids.
yeah,
So what the system that he used to get them where they're at, it sounded like he had a very scripted, a very specific way. So what parts of that could other coaches use? Because it seems like the system that's always been used continues to be used, and continued not to have a very good outcome.
yeah. And I like the system that he chose, although I think it was extreme. Are you hearing an echo on your end now?
No,
Okay, maybe it's okay.
it's just,
Um,
yeah. So
so
yeah, I
with
mean,
Richard,
yeah, go ahead.
no, just say with Richard, what I like is that I think junior tennis can hold kids back in a way. I think a lot of times when you lose to the same person in the 12s, they're going to have this psychological advantage over you in the 14s and the 16s. I I personally love playing adults, playing all different people rather than just focusing on juniors. But everyone's different. Some people want to go the junior route and do that, and that's great. But I don't think it's necessary. And I think Richard proved that without a doubt that it's really not, because Venus didn't play a tournament from the age 11 to when she played that pro tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, how is that possible to, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, she played a ton of practice matches. She was playing against, a ton of guys. And I guess she had one guy, Gerard, who she hit with a ton. And who I met, Gerard, he was still hitting with him a little bit when I was around. And so they always had good practice and good matches and stuff. But sometimes junior tennis, I think you have to be careful with it. You have to be careful with it. There's a lot of ways to improve.
Yeah, because ultimately it seems like maybe some people would be looking at like that junior trophy, that junior at the end of the junior career, being at the height of that as the goal, right? And so
Right.
while other players are looking beyond that and just going, this is my goal. My goal is Wimbledon, or my goal is such and such, and you know, you don't necessarily need to stop at,
Right.
go off the path to do that or whatever. But yeah, that match at the end with Arantxa, that was kind of interesting because obviously it looked like she was going to win, and that was the whole purpose of that match, showing that match, and so forth, and then to break up the momentum, Arantxa took that bathroom break, and it's just like I'd like to go back and watch that match actually, because like how accurate was that? Was that just kind of did they maybe over exaggerate parts of that? But it did show either way. It did show, you could see how Venus was very, she was on the court kind of by herself, like, what do I do now? You could tell she was just, learning the system, right? Learning
Right.
professional tennis and what happens. But she was very graceful. She didn't flip out,
Right.
because they really, in the movie, it seemed like they really portrayed a lot of other juniors as just not having the mental capacity to be where they're at, right? And so I think that's probably what Richard was trying to show, is how he really, his goal was to teach them, a way where they will be mentally prepared when those moments come.
Yeah. Yeah, and he did. He had a lot of unorthodox, unusual, methods, and one of them was, a lot of times we'd practice at their house, but there were a number of occasions where he would find kind of the most beat up public courts we could find, and we would practice in courts with ripped nets, big cracks in the courts. We would use balls that had been left outside overnight that were still damp from the morning dew. So there was a lot of that to Richard about just being able to deal with adversity and stuff. And I think that's great and stuff. And even though Serena's sometimes had some difficulty dealing with some things that didn't go her way, and she's let herself get a little bit agitated and stuff, but overall, those things, I think are probably good to teach kids. You play with not the best lighting, play with not the best equipment, play with and that way, if things aren't great, you've got a little advantage because you've been here, you've been you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess overall, I thought it was, for me it was kind of emotional, just because I mean I would imagine for you it was pretty emotional too, just because you remember that period of your life being part of that somehow. For me, tennis was a big part of my life at that time, and just seeing some of that stuff, and just especially in Southern California where I was at the time too. So yeah, it was a fun walk down kind of memory lane of tennis in that time period, right?
Yeah, sure. And you're right. I mean, Richard was so generous to me and so kind, and just I was blown away, and I felt guilty because I had preconceived kind of opinions of him before I met him, just on things you read, this and that. But he was just so courteous, above and beyond. It was always me, even before them. Brad, you need a ride home? This is the first time I met them in Chicago. When I said, no, I'll get home. No, come on, Brad, come on. We got a transportation. We're gonna get you home first. We'll drive you home. Just things like that. When I was getting out of the car, Serena was really shy. She was 15. She was quiet. Mika, do you thank Brad? Mika, do you thank Brad? Thanks, Brad. And so he just always made sure that he was teaching those girls to, just to look out for me. And it was really nice. Always, how's your mom? How's your brother? How's your dad? Just really a nice guy. And so for me, I wouldn't have stuck around if I didn't like the family.
Yeah.
I was 27, 26 years old. I was kind of ready to move on and settle down where I live. And so I didn't need it, but I loved Richard. And I had such a great time with the family. The girls were great. The mother was great. So I really enjoyed it. I probably enjoyed the time I was with them at their house more than I did being at the tournaments.
Yeah,
but
just kinda hanging out and just being
yeah, just kind of hanging out and hitting with them and stuff.
yeah.
But overall, it was a unique and an incredible experience to be able to to experience, because I didn't need any help experiencing the grunge of the tennis. I've experienced the satellites. I've experienced just grinding it out. But to be able to experience what it's like to be in the champions circle multiple times, with Novotna, then with Venus and Serena, was pretty unique and pretty something that I'll always hold dear.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess we both gave it a thumbs up then, right?
Yeah, yeah, thumbs up. It's definitely worth seeing for sure. I think it is definitely worth seeing.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I don't know how long we were yeah, we talked about that for a while. We probably lost a few folks, but somebody else, Alan, had got on. Actually, he's the one that I talked about earlier about the tool tray.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, the tool trays. And so yeah, he was talking about something I don't understand. I keep track of the racket model and string excess. Oh, in the previous book, I find that one of the first linear pulling machines have only one clamp, only around the world allowed. Um, oh yeah, so that was always an issue. Like, earlier when we talked about around the world, and we talked about, if you're stringing on a constant pull machine around the world, it's no big deal. But if you're using an old Prince machine, or where you had, whether you're using flying clamps or whether you're using the clamps that were on the rails, on the Prince machines, the
Hmm.
Neo, the Echelon machines, around the world was a little bit more difficult, right? Because when you're going around the world, you're going to have one clamp that clamps the mains, and then now all of a sudden you got to have a clamp that clamps the crosses, and
Yeah.
you can't take the rails off because one of them is connected to a string.
Right.
And so how do you do that? So on the old machines, that makes sense. You wouldn't really be able to do that unless you had a starting clamp. Because if you had a starting clamp, then you could secure the strings and then take those things off and then put them back to face the other direction. And then you could do that. And I think it'd be the same way if you had flying clamps and you had other machines, the old manual machines. You have to use a starting clamp, because really starting clamps can secure the strings around the frame so that you can release your clamps and use them for what you need. So yeah, that would be, but yeah, it is a little tougher. So if I had one of those other machines, I'd probably cut my string in two every time, and
Yeah. Good
do
point.
two-piece stringing, just because it's a pain otherwise. So,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I guess we should we leave it kind of on that? I mean, I don't, we've been going an hour and 20 minutes now. The only other thing I just wanted to mention was, thanks everybody for checking out the video who stayed this long, and please subscribe. And where there's going to be more of these in the future. Also, I just started, actually, earlier I talked about, buy me a coffee, that site where people can donate if they found the information valuable. I also started a one-to-one stringing coaching, which I'm going to start. Hopefully that'll take off, where basically what I'm doing is taking people in whatever level stringing they're at. I'm going to try to help them with whatever they need help in, via video and email support. And so it's going to be kind of like having a one-to-one, stringing coach to help, kind of
Great.
like you're a hitting coach, or that was kind of a lot of the things that you did. So I'll be, helping people with their stringing a little bit more and
Neat.
stuff. So that'll be kind of fun. But everybody's kind of checking out now. So GDL Tennis says bye. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the future streams. Brad, do you have any final words?
No, thanks again. I enjoyed doing this. So hopefully we can continue to build your site, your channel. If we get
Yeah, I got to get that.
on or some other guys,
Yeah.
it'd be fun to keep doing this and get different guests in and learning different things.
And next time, I'll maybe you can prepare some things that you want to talk about too, and we
Yeah,
can start with that, some questions that you have, some issues that you come up with when you're stringing,
sure.
and because really it would make it more valuable if I can have some things on here for beginning stringers, and then maybe advanced stringers. By that time, I might have my machine set up, so we'll show that off. So I don't know if anybody can get, anybody wants to guess what kind of machine I have, but we'll it should be kind of fun to tournament grade. And I think I mentioned that the brand in the video earlier, just in talking. But there's another thing before we go, right? The symposium, the ERSA symposium.
Yeah.
Right? Mention that. It's the European Racket Stringers Association is having an online symposium next week, so you would have to get on that website. I'll put a link on later on. I'll put a few links to some of the things that we talked about today. But I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now.
Okay.
And Brad, you can hang out for a few minutes. We'll just
Yep.
chat for a second. But yeah, so I guess that's it for today, everyone. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you next time.